All right, jump in, strap in. We're going to talk about the good, the bad, and the ugly leaving wine country in Sonoma as we prepare for round 4 or 5 of the in-season tournament with Cups and Xfinity Series action at Dover. We're also going to dig into just the gray clouds over pit road, maybe. We're going to talk about the latest in the antitrust suit and the charters, and we're going to remember a Georgia Racing Hall of Famer who was inducted several years ago who just passed away. We've got all that ahead here on episode 322 of the 5 to Go podcast. All right. Clear your system. We're ready to jump in, right, Dev? Get that
Yeah.
cinnamon dust out of yourself, okay? Hey, climb in the window, hop in the driver's seat, pull the belts tight. Make sure before you pull them tight, you've actually put on the fireproof driver's suit because it's going to heat up here on 5 to Go podcast, episode 322 here on YouTube, OPRN.com, Spotify, and Apple. I'm your co-host, co-creator, treasurer. We haven't made any money yet, so I'm just going to add that on too. But no, Doug Fireball Turnbull. I'm from the announcing team. Tan's laughing. He's like, yeah, he's been saying we're going to
What
make
about
money
that
for 8 years.
93 cents?
I got 93 cents off of one video, I think it was. And that may have been from the helicopter, the video. I'm not sure. But
Oh,
anyway,
yeah, it was
I'm Doug
helicopter.
Fireball Turnbull. It's okay. It all counts. From the traffic team, I almost said the wrong station, at 11 Alive, from the announcing team at Performance Racing Network. And many of them were out in wine country in Sonoma, California this weekend. I did not get to join them there, but they did an excellent job on PRN. And I'm happy to be with you, AJC Gridlock Guy columnist as well. And we're so glad you're here. Joining us on the show, we're going to dive into so much here, including previewing Dover. Joining us, first off, he's a roving racing journo, soon-to-be college grad, and they call him Cinnamon Toast Kupka. That's what I've heard. Anyway, that's what the girls on the UNG softball team call him for sure, man. And he just got done watching history at State Farm Arena in Atlanta, Georgia this past weekend. Devin Kupka. It wasn't a Beyonce concert, was it?
No, it was not the Beyonce concert. We were just right next door, but I got to go to my very first ever WWE live event. I went to Saturday night's main event Saturday night, and then got to see Evolution, which is a women's only premium live event. The first time they've done that since 2018, so that was a lot of fun. Got to see Georgia native Bill Goldberg participate in his final match against Gunther Saturday, so that was nice to see him do that. Lift the jackhammer, that was pretty cool, and see him win, or not win, he lost to Gunther, but see him do the farewell speech, that was pretty nice. And then Evolution was pretty fun too, so it was Rhea Ripley and Io Sky. Io Sky was the WWE Women's Champion, and Naomi, and by the way, this is WWE stuff, so if people don't watch it,
I think we got a lot of listeners who are right there with you. I am not one of them, but I'm interested in how you experienced it. So tell us about Evolution, how that finished up.
So it was quite an interesting finish. So there's a PLE during the year called Money in the Bank, and there's a men's and women's Money in the Bank briefcase that you can win. One for the men, one for the women. If you win one of those briefcases, you can cash in at any time, as long as you got a referee with you. You cash in, you could go for a title of your choosing. Tag team titles, world heavyweight title, or the right be all, the championship, men's or women's championship. So we saw on Sunday night, after Rhea Ripley and Io Sky were going all over the arena practically doing these crazy moves after the ref took a bump. Both laying down in the ring. Naomi comes out at the end, both wrestlers down, cashes in the Money in the Bank, becomes a three-way for the championship, and then Naomi able to take advantage and wins the WWE Women's title. So it was pretty fun. It was pretty fun. And we got upgraded.
So who won the title again?
It was Naomi.
Naomi. Okay.
And then another thing about this weekend is we got upgraded. Our section got taped off for Evolutions. WWE placed us right on top of the stage where they come out.
Devin, there's something about you and getting upgraded and up close to women's sports that is very endearing, I think. And no, I think that's really cool, man. I'm glad you got to go. I've been to one of those events, and I don't follow wrestling at all, bikini at all. World War II battle. Okay. No, but I don't follow wrestling at all, but I got to go for a client event at WSB, my previous employer. Basically, I had to help host the box for a few clients there, and it was pretty cool. I mean, I'm not into it. I don't like that it's staged, I guess, but the energy was palpable. People were crazy about it. So I'm glad you got to go. And by the way, Jade Cargill, did you see her wrestle? Jade Cargill was in the studios at Channel 11 this past week. Apparently, Jonathan Martin, our morning co-anchor, I never would have guessed, is a huge WWE fan and managed to swing getting her in the studio for a one-on-one interview on 11 Live. You can read about 11live.com. That's pretty cool, man. And you got to thread the needle on Saturday because we did have 4 nights of Beyonce in town, Thursday through Monday, with Saturday off. So you were in the middle of the Beyonce madness. Dan Elliott, we'll get to you in a minute. Okay, this always happens at the beginning of the show, right? You were in the middle of Beyonce madness Sunday. Did you see any good Beyonce fits downtown? Were there any drip fits down there?
I will say you knew who was going to the Beyonce concert because everybody
Yeah,
was wearing a cowboy hat.
a cowboy hat. Because when I think Beyonce, I mean, think cowboy. Yeah, no, I know
Yeah, and you
Cowboy
think
Carter's a
country
huge
music,
album.
right?
Yeah, I mean, but hey, that was a country album, man. It was good. It was good. I mean, it felt contrived, but it was good. You can't. I mean, if I start rapping on this show, it's a rap podcast. All right. I mean, it is. So there you go. No,
We're lucky
that's
we
cool.
got out before Beyonce got out on Sunday night.
Well, I just want to say at WWE Dev on Sunday, I'm glad you had an upgrade. Upgrade. All right. Joining us on the
How
show.
big was the crowd at WWE?
How was it?
How was the crowd?
How big was
Honestly,
it,
I will
Tim?
say there were more people there on Saturday, but the atmosphere was a lot more electric, and the crowd was more into it on Sunday.
Really?
Yeah.
Okay. That's interesting. I would have thought in general, just the main WWE event on Saturday would have been big. Well, the guy that asks the toughest, most pertinent questions on this podcast, he's the one that has the best base tan as well. He's the master maker of speed, grinds those gears in Dawsonville. And I mean, no shade to Devin or me. Dan's got the best base tan right now. Dan Elliott, 2018 Georgia Racing Hall of Fame inductee. He is there in the Elliott garage with pieces of race car and beautiful T-shirts behind him. How you doing, sir?
Doing good. Hope everybody is well. Hope everybody is keeping cool and keeping hydrated. But great weekend. I didn't know all the activities. I knew Devin was going to WWE. I had seen some of the stuff on Beyonce being in town and the concerts and so forth. But also, too, they were having something at the ballpark.
This tiny little generational event called the All-Star Game.
There you go.
The MLB All-Star Game. Yes, that is tonight as we record here on a Tuesday afternoon. Home Run Derby was last night, and they had all the fan activities around there as well. I actually went up there last Wednesday to do basically a pre-traffic story to help do one. Rachel Cox Rosen, my tag team partner, Channel 11 Traffic, 11 Live Traffic. She actually did the story, but we got to go and see kind of what the layout and the plan was for that. So, yeah, it definitely was real up there, Dan. Was there anything big? Now, you talk about the traffic at Dawsonville every weekend. I actually saw a news reportage about a controversy about the developments around this roundabout that you and Devin were discussing. But what was the traffic like to you?
Traffic everywhere is no different anymore, and I'm not being sarcastic. It's just we are another metro town, and the traffic is horrendous, and it's not going to get any better. And that's just the truth of the matter.
And Dawsonville's about to get busier because they're adding a McDonald's to downtown Dawsonville.
Downtown Dawsonville.
So after the
Well,
racing
now I
hall
know
thing
you've
in the
arrived.
coming years, we can get McDonald's afterwards.
Why in Sam Heasy would you go to McDonald's at Dawsonville when you could go to the pool room? What are we doing?
Oh, in the induction ceremony, going to be at the Hall of Fame, and next door to the Hall of Fame will be the McDonald's where you can go feast on whatever you want to get there, and you be good.
Guys, if anybody is going to Dawsonville, now that's not from Dawsonville. If you live there, you're not eating the pool room every day. But if you're going to Dawsonville for the first time and you're stopping at the McDonald's and you're not stopping at the Hall of Fame, I'm washing my hands of you. All right? I've got nothing for you.
How many
This
new McDonald's can you say you've been to that have been built in the past 2 years, 3 years, or 5?
I don't know. I don't know. I don't count my McDonald's visits. And the ice cream
Yeah.
machine doesn't work. By the way, McDonald's, if you would like to be a proud sponsor of the 5 to Go podcast, respond right here. Respond right here. Because it won't ever happen now. Hey, look, we got a big show. Got a big show today. Let's go, Sonoma. Here's the deal. I don't have TNT. All right, wham, wham, wham. All right, but I listened to the beginning of the race. PRN, they did a great job calling it. When SVG was leading, and then when church was over, I went to church, came out. Guess what? 5 laps to go. Was it overtime or was it a late restart? And SVG was still leading. So I didn't miss anything, did I, Devin? What were you taking? Now you're shrugging, but I mean, you did some research on the race. You've been on social media. You've been texting with all your sources in the sport. Jeff Gordon gave you a call after the race to brief you on how the Hendrick drivers did. But how did you think Sunday went from the 30,000 foot or 30,000 mile away view, maybe?
I don't know. It was kind of tough to see from where I was sitting at Evolution on Sunday, but I tuned in a little bit before the show began on Sunday night on HBO. It's now HBO Max again. It's not Max anymore. It's HBO Max once again. So I was on there for a little bit, watching just kind of clip it to the race, and I saw a little bit. Briscoe was battling SVG there, but then SVG was able to overtake Briscoe, and it's funny to see all these restarts. It's like, oh wow, is SVG gonna get jumped on this restart? Is somebody gonna finally pass him? But anytime we got that opportunity, he would just eventually just go right back into the lead. It was just always a matter of time. Put 2 or 3 cars in front of him, he'll find a way to get back into the lead. And I think that's kind of what the story was of the race that we saw at Sonoma on Sunday.
Now, we've talked a little bit about since the May double for Kyle Larson, which was very deflating. Things have not gone very well. I don't like to make too much of it because drivers that make the playoffs early, generally, a lot of them have these dips in the summertime. It was incredible to me that when Kyle Larson was leading Dan Elliott in stage 2, that SVG short pitted to not win the stage and still won the bloody stage, man. That is dominance, right? I mean, what did you think as you learned about that, Dan?
Well, one thing for sure, the cards all fell his way, and you had to have
Yes.
the luck, no doubt. But he also made it look easy. I thought there were a few cautions. There were a number of cautions. I think there were 6 cautions, and it still fell his way, even though it was tough to go out and lead. But he made it look easy, and
Yeah, he
this
did.
is this is the thing that as we'll talk about as we get into this a little bit more is you did the race end up finishing the way that you wanted it to finish or you were happy with? Because here's my take on the whole thing. We've heard the SVG thing, and my thing is I love that racetrack. I love the fact that there was racing through the field. I love the fact that we had excitement through the field, and it wasn't, or it didn't appear to be one of the races where fuel mileage got in the way, or we were saving fuel, or whatever the scenario was. I think it was a good race throughout, and the best man won. And this is one of those things where this don't happen a lot of the times, but we witnessed a race where, as the season has shown us with SVG, is how good this driver really is on a road course.
There's no doubt about that. I want to say if you have, let's just say 3 outcomes of a race, and I know there's some more. You have the winning driver in car, the rightful driver in car dominates the day and still wins. You know, they just go curtain to curtain, almost like William Byron did in Darlington, and almost like William Byron did in the Coke 600. But neither one happened. But if you have someone just put on a full performance, okay, like I'll take it every once in a while. You don't want that every week. If you have somebody with the best car that is facing adversity and carves, slices, stabs through the field and gets to the front, I'll take it. And I'll take it if you have a good race overall, and no matter who the winner is, they go out and rightfully pass for the lead. Here's the one that would have driven me the wrong way, guys. If you watch 99% of that race, and then a late restart, Chase Briscoe had dumped SVG, or SVG had missed one corner and lost the race. So it would have been like, oh my God, I sat through all that. At least let me sit through what at times most would say is not the best race in history. Okay, at least let me see the guy finish the job, you know. And I think to me, I'm glad if you're going to have it happen that way. SVG didn't just survive the 2 stage breaks; he survived all those late cautions. And every time, no matter what, they threw the toolbox at him. The racing gods did, and he still was able to win. All right, let me run down the race results here, and we'll talk about a couple more things for the race. There's some pit road stuff, I know, and also this whole already greatest of all time, the talk that we need to discuss. So, first place, Shane Van Gisbergen there led 97 of 110 laps. Wild, right? I think that's the most ever led in a Sonoma race there. I did see a NASCAR Insights stat. I believe SVG, God, I need to pull it up. I think he was the first driver to win 3 races from the pole in a season, I think since Jimmy Johnson in 08 or something like that. It hadn't happened in a long time what he's doing.
I think it was Jeff Gordon sometime since, I think, 1998, I want to say.
All right,
I saw the same thing.
Here, while I'm pouring through, can you pull up the NASCAR Insights X and scroll real quick, Dev? I'm going to buzz through the top 10 here. Chase Briscoe said on PRN that this is his worst racetrack. but he got his best career finish there at Sonoma, that is, finishing second. He led 2 laps. Chase Elliott got fresh tires at the end. There was a lot of backlash about that, and he drove through the field and got up to third. He actually lost a spot at one point when he got to third, and then he got it back. Michael McDowell, he led 3 laps, finished fourth. Christopher Bell finished fifth, and he overcame a spin earlier in the race to do that. Tyler Reddick, still winless this year. It's just not a lot to write home about, but he puts that, if anybody's heard those commercials or not, on Dirty Mo Media, Chumba Casino Toyota, he finished sixth. Ty Gibbs finished seventh, and we'll talk about Pit Road and Ty Gibbs, which to me was a nothing burger, in just a minute. There's my opinion. William Byron, who I thought would be a big contender on Sunday, he was eighth. Joey Logano just quietly finished ninth, and Kyle Busch overcame several trouble spots to finish in the 10th spot. We also saw just on the playoff bubble, guys, Bubba Wallace finishing way back there again. He has spun out. Chris Buescher, who finished there in the, did he finish in the top 10? No, he didn't. He ended up finishing 16th, guys. Chris Buescher, to me, somebody who's really thinking he's not good on points in these playoffs, had a couple of dust-ups, Ryan Blaney being one of them, and there were some others too, that it shows to me it's very uncharacteristic of Chris Buescher. And I want to come to Dan first, just being the veteran that's seen a lot more of these than both of us, okay? Chris Buescher, the last 2 years, has had that heat on him, and he missed the playoffs last year. He gave up some points in the summer, and now here he is finishing 16th on when he should be money on road courses. It was running top 5 there. Do you think that maybe the desperation bug has bit the 17 at all, Dan, or was this just circumstance?
I think it's a little bit of both. I think circumstance more than anything, and I think that he will still come through this. But you and I both know that it seems like that sophomore year, the 2-year, 3-year stretch seems to be the one that most drivers have the most difficulty in years past. Now, whether it's this way with him or not, or if it has anything to do with it or not, but I think this just shows you the level of competition, how tough it is, and how close these cars really are. And also, too, anytime that you're not in that top 3, 4, or 5, you're thrown in the rest of the field, and the rest of the field was kind of this weekend what I didn't expect to see so much of. Was there were some cars that got leaned on, pounded on,
Yeah.
and run into, and not necessarily any of this on purpose, but it gets into what we're talking about the competition of we're past the halfway point of the regular season by far. Okay,
Yeah,
so
2 races.
now we're getting into the nitty gritty of are we going to make the cut or not? Because if you don't make that playoff deal, to me, that is key, because I think the sponsors expect that from most everybody, and I think the drivers may not even register to them, because they have their own goals and they know exactly what they want to do, and this is not fitting in with their goals either on where they're at. So I think the level of, as we're seeing after the race is over, the passion of the sport and how hard these people are really pushing the envelope. If you're not in that, if you haven't won a race and you're not far enough in the points, I think you're seeing the level of desperation now as we wane down on the rest of the season, the regular season, that you're going to see more before it's done. And I'm not counting any of these drivers out yet, because these cars, and you've got several races coming up that are not road course races, that are races that we could see a different winner, a different scenario out of these finishes at some of these other tracks.
Well, no doubt. That's a great point. The desperation is there, ladies and gentlemen.
Is
The
there.
desperation is there. Is there anything you want to add to that, Devin, that you see differently? Or do you think that this is an overreaction about Chris Buescher and things just happened? I don't know. I mean, just it seems to me he's been such a cool driver. He doesn't usually rough people up, and he had his elbows out Sunday. But he got into Ty Gibbs and he got into Ryan Blaney by my short count.
Too concerned, about Buescher. He's, in the playoffs as of if the season ended right now, he'd be in the playoffs. But yeah, I feel like that's an organization that's been on the rise since Keselowski has entered that organization during this Gen 7 era, and we've seen Buescher win numerous races in that equipment since Keselowski has joined. But I feel like they want to continue to raise that bar, and yeah, there's that pressure to win and get in and lock yourself into the playoffs. But at the moment, I'm not too concerned right now, because I feel like, just get into the playoffs and just see what happens there. Yeah, you want to win a race, but I'm not too concerned about Buescher. And But I will say, we want to talk about Buescher. RFK does have sick cars.
I
So
mean, they do have sick paint schemes there, and the cars have been running better too. Even Kozlowski finished 11th Sunday on a road course. He's been more in the conversation lately for sure. So let's back up these opinions with the playoff bubble. Now, here's how. Listen, NASCAR. Many ways, I love you. All right. And I'm not the only one that said this, and this is certainly not the first time we've said this on the show. Get your freaking act together with these point standings on NASCAR.com. I am reading the playoff bubble standings off of HendrickMotorsports.com, and it is from Sonoma this year. All right, I checked. This is right. Okay, here it is. The playoff bubble. There are 12 drivers that have won at least one race. 13th. So the way the playoff standings are situated, 13th in points, even though he's got way more points than that, is Tyler Reddick. All right. He is plus, I don't mean 13th in the classic points. I mean, he's the 13th ranked driver. He is plus 49 to falling out of the playoffs. Tyler Reddick, and he's been consistent and clean, but nothing like we've seen the last couple of years. He is within one race or points from falling out of the playoffs. All right. He is the 13th. He's the highest driver that's on points only. Chris Buescher, plus 34 to the cut line. Plus 34. Easily could be wiped out in one race. Alex Bowman, plus 32. He's had some tough times, especially back in like May and June. He's gotten a little better lately. But he lost. He got kicked out of the in-season tournament by Ty Dillon punting him in the last lap. I mean, not spinning him, but knocking him out of the way. Bubba Wallace, who got spun in that race at least once, but he also passed a bunch of cars too. He is only plus 3 to the cut line. The drivers on the negative in the red. Ryan Preece is minus 3. Kyle Busch, minus 37. AJ Allmendinger, minus 50. And Ty Gibbs, 20th in points now, minus 60. So, of course, anybody could win. But to get in on points, it seems like it's getting tougher and tougher for the guys below the cut line. So let's rest on Ty Gibbs here. There was a situation on pit road where he entered the pit box and got really close to Brad Keselowski's crew. The TV crew, Steve Letarte, even got it confused. Maybe he's just getting bad information in his ear. I don't know. So I'm just going to say TV. At first thought that Ty Gibbs was retaliating for contact on the track with Chris Buescher, but it was Brad Keselowski's pit box that he entered in. Now, let's remember the NASCAR rules. Number one, a driver gets up to 3 pit boxes they could drive through to enter their pit stall, and that includes empty pit boxes. Number two, the pit crews used to have to wait on the walls, but a recent change, as I heard Brad Gilley talking about on PRN, is that the pit crew member that carries 2 tires is allowed to wait in the pit box. They just need to be out of the way. So when Ty Gibbs is making his move through Brad Keselowski's stall, and there's a diagonal line at the top of that stall that he's allowed to drive through. He's cutting in the last second. He did it within the line, but he did get close to the tire carrier on the 6 car. One last thing. Tempers are high. Adrenaline is high. A few crew members tussle in the pits. Wendy Venturini, PRN, talked about punches being thrown. It looked like it, at least in the moment, but they certainly had to be separated. After the race, NASCAR said Ty Gibbs did no wrong. They cleared him of anything against the rules. After the race, he said, I have the right of way at 3 pit stalls. Now, you're not supposed to run over a crew, but I have the right of way. And NASCAR, the only thing they were going to investigate was the tussle between the crews. So I'll lay that all up here. Devin, you've gone back and watched the tape. You've poured over MySpace posts. You've looked at old Vine videos. That might not be true, but you've definitely done some research here. Was social media pitchfork crowd right, or were we more on the cooler heads NASCAR side of things?
No, I looked at it. So I had a friend text me while I was at Evolution on Sunday, and I'm like, oh, wow, really? Did Ty Gibbs really do something like that? There's been...
That's what it looked like,
There's been, he's had his run-ins in the past, but I looked at it, and I saw the replay of it online of what RFK Racing posted, and I saw what Gibbs did, and I'm like, that's a normal pit stop if I've seen anything. And
I never would have known.
I saw somebody make a great point online. Well, what if Ty Gibbs actually knows the rules? Because he didn't... I would understand maybe if he was cutting, he was already in the pit box and he ran through Keselowski's pit box just straight up, like just going into his next pit box. No, he actually waited to angle himself in Keselowski's pit box, or to angle himself to get into his pit box, which is well within the rules, because he didn't even cut through a pit box, really. He just dove into his pit box, essentially, and just took the upper coordinate of the Keselowski pit box. And
which there's a piece of tape, let's remind people, so you're allowed to drive over that piece of tape.
Exactly, and he dove into his own pit box, which that is well within the rules. I mean, I could see maybe a case of if he was 2 or 3 pit boxes out, which is the limit, which is 3. I could see the case maybe being there, but with this, he was well within the rules, and if anything, maybe Keselowski's crew jumped a little bit early. I mean, I don't think there was any malintent in what Ty Gibbs did on Sunday.
Gotcha. Okay.
I think it was
Dan,
just a normal
now,
pit stop that everybody's blowing up.
now, there are a lot of people, almost anybody commenting on this has never driven a race car. All right. I'm sure there were comments along the lines of, well, I don't understand why you have to drive through any pit. You're the highest paid stock car drivers in the world. You just should be able to turn, 90 degrees right into your pit stall and parallel park at 45 miles an hour. And I'm like, okay, yeah, and shift and all that. Okay, cool. Hot take. But we also have a lot of people, including myself, Dan, weighing in on this that have never put their butt on the line changing tires like you have. So what were your thoughts on this whole thing? And then maybe just this whole tension that I feel like pit crew road creates, where it seems like it's just a recipe for errors and danger more than it is a fun thing to watch sometimes.
I'll go back to pit road at Riverside and pit road at Riverside. It comes down to me to head games.
Hey, remind people what Riverside is now, because we got some of Devin's friends are watching.
Riverside was the road course that was before Sonoma came into existence, because the last race at Riverside was 88, and then the first race at Sonoma was 89.
Okay.
So the pit road at Riverside in 88, that racetrack was east of LA. This one at Sonoma is closer to San Francisco, but it doesn't matter. Take any racetrack, whether it's an oval or road course, I don't care. Dale Sr. was a master at this, because he would try to intimidate you whether you were changing tires or whether you were driving a race car or whether you were jacking a car. If there was any way to create a problem, if there was any way to create confusion on pit road, this is a masterful way to do it. If that's your choice to do it that way, this just messes up your whole pit stop, because it throws the whole thing off. Ty Gibbs absolutely knew what the rules were. Most people that pit the cars know that the car has the right of way, whether or not you've got the rules on your side or not, because you doggone sure don't want to get run over.
Right.
So you're going to get out of the way of the car regardless. But did the pit crew know this? Did they know the rules exactly? Or was this a head game for them to jump out there to where that he would have to miss whoever's on pit road? You could look at it either way. But I know that there are drivers that were masters at this, that they didn't care whether you were on pit road and whether you had the rules on your side or not. They were going to try to intimidate you on pit road, so that it would mess up your pit stop and you'd be longer on pit road. And the thing about it is you've got 2 tires. Well, the tire changers used to be, back before this aluminum wheel and these lighter tires, the tires and wheels were twice as heavy then as they are today.
Yeah, that's a great point.
Tire carrier that was on the wall, jumped off the wall with 2 tires and wheels, that if they had interliners in them, they weighed 62 pounds apiece.
Yeah.
And now you've got about a total of 65 or 66 pounds for both tires and wheels. So as in shape as these pit crew are, and as athletic as they are, because you had a lot of people that pitted the cars before that didn't have the benefit of size or weight or anything like that, weren't used to this, but it was what you could afford at the time. And now times have changed, because the money now to do this is just asinine as far as what the crews get paid to do to pit these cars. And
yeah,
I know that it takes a lot of expertise. It takes a lot of training, and to do this week in and week out and not hurt yourself is tough to do, because I know a lot of times you come back from the races before and how bad you hurt for the next week, but you went on, and now they're trained to where that they don't get hurt, and they can do this day in, day out, and everything's okay. But back to the point is, I feel like that Ty was well within his rights to do what he did. I feel like the tire guy was in the wrong place, and maybe he did not know the rules as to what he was supposed to do, and allowing the car the right of way, whether or not it's legal or not. But also too, I'd have to ask him, did you do that on purpose? Did you try to mess up the pit stop by being where you shouldn't have been anyway?
Well, right, and that's you just don't know the games the crews play too. It's not just the drivers there, right? And here's the deal. So some of y'all know the gig I had before moving to Channel 11 was hosting. I promise this has to do with this. Okay, just bear with me. That I was helping host. I was co-hosting podcasts and radio shows for financial advisors. So this great place called Impact Partnership, and one of those podcasts was called The Games of Life. Amber Redekop hosted it. She's out, still hosted, in fact, and she's out of Johnstown, Colorado. Right, Amber, unlike the average financial advisor who's really kind of pushing toward retirement age people and people that have a large amount of assets under management, Amber was trying to be relatable to a person that had $5 to $5 million, just anybody. And she called her show The Games of Life. The Games of Life. And here's her premise to your point about everybody playing the game. In money, you could either get played or you could play the game back at them. All right. So you're in charge of your money. So you have to take the moves you're allowed to take so they don't play the move on you first. Don't just pay the minimum on your credit card statement. No, then you're playing their game. No, you play your game legally. Okay. And so here's the deal, too. Whether it's drivers on the track, whether it's the AI, Dan, right? Whether it's the pit crews, whether it's the mechanics, whether it's the officials, who knows, right? Everybody's trying to play their game. NASCAR's game is to have an entertaining show that a lot of people stay engaged with. Herein lies the tension of the antitrust suit, which we will get to in a little bit. All right, where we've still got some more to talk about in California, and also we got to get to Dover as well. All right, so Dan, great points there on pit crew. By the way, the number 6 team was Ty Gibbs's post-race interview with Marty Snyder on TNT and HBO Max and all of that. He mentioned, 6 team, too bad they got a penalty, and I was like, did they? I don't know what they did wrong. They did not get a penalty. So they weren't over the wall too soon or any, pit road safety infraction or anything like that. In fact, there are only 8 penalties in this race. One of them, poor Cody Ware, lost a wheel nut popped off and it came off. Imagine how long it takes to even get back to pit road when that happens. And so he lost 2 laps.
I think the tire and wheel beat him back to pit road.
They might have, yeah. And poor Cody, of course, nailed that barrier hard at Chicago. And we talked last week episode 321, about the timeliness of the caution or not. I had a crazy idea about maybe how to tighten up the transparency, if you will, with this. So check out episode 321 on all of the aforementioned podcatchers, but not on MySpace, because Devin doesn't even know what MySpace is. All right, so let's talk a little bit more about Sonoma. Now, there is the hype machine, ladies and gentlemen. Now, I've fallen victim to it. It's worth asking the question, even though I don't like doing the prisoner of the moment hype machine stuff. And here it is. All right. BG is now the greatest NASCAR road racer of all time. All right. And a great case can be made. I think anybody listening that has watched the sport in the last couple of weeks can make the case. I want to point something out. He now has 4 wins. And I think for fun, to go down memory lane, let's name all the drivers in the history of this sport. All right, of the, let's see, over 206 people have won a NASCAR Cup Series race. And only a select few have won 4 races. Hall of Famer Glenn Wood, of the Wood Brothers, who founded the Wood Brothers, only 4 races won. Michael Waltrip, 2-time Daytona 500 winner, 4 races. Billy Wade, Ricky Stenhouse Jr., Nelson Stacy, Morgan Shepherd, Ken Schrader, Eddie Pagan. I don't even know who that is. Dan, do you know Eddie Pagan? Dan froze up. That's how mystified he is by Eddie Pagan. Joe Nemechek, Front Row Joe, won 4 races. Herschel McGriff is in the Hall of Fame for racing into his 90s. Parnelli Jones, Pete Hamilton. We'll talk about Pete Hamilton later in the show. The late Bobby Hamilton, 4 race wins. There's a few more, Devin. You got to sit through a few more. All right. Eddie Gray, Charlie Glotzbach, Bob Flock, hashtag Georgia drivers, and Lloyd Dane. That's what, about 15 or so. I'm just free balling it, 105 to 88. 18 drivers have won 4 races in the history of NASCAR. That's pretty big, Devin, wouldn't you say? But greatest of all time? He only came on the scene 2 years ago, and we got a lot more road racing left, including a lot more races per year, Devin. So what do you think when people say that? And I see you shaking your head.
I think when you look at the greatest of all time of athletes across all sports, Michael Jordan in the NBA, Tom Brady in the NFL, And even look at Jimmy Johnson in NASCAR or Richard Petty or Dale Earnhardt Sr. I think what you have to do if you want to get in that GOAT category, and they're talking about road courses and all that, I think it's sustained success over time. It's not, oh wow, how did this person do in this 1 month time span? We need to put this person in the NASCAR Hall of Fame. He's the greatest road course racer of all time. I don't agree with that. We got to see, is SVG still dominating the road courses 5, 10 years from now? I think that's how you have to look at it before we say greatest road course race driver of all time.
Now, I will do this caveat. So there's a lot, people elevate an Alan Kulwicki or a Davey Allison, people whose careers were cut short. In fact, we just had the anniversary, if you will, of Davey Allison's death. I think it was yesterday or the day before when he crashed a helicopter crash in Talladega. All right. So you weight Davey Allison's wins more because you knew what the potential was later on. In Shane Van Gisbergen's case, let's just assume he races as long as he wants to, which he's 36 years old. So 7 years he'll be 43. He'll be Denny Hamlin's age, right? If he doesn't end up with the most road course wins, Devin, of all time, but he has a high percentage of races run and laps led and stuff, you're saying a bigger body of work. He doesn't have to win it all, but you just need a bigger body of work. Am I hearing you right?
Yeah, I would say a bigger body of work, and it's sustained success over time. We don't see people put into Hall of Fames due to short stints of time, unless you're talking about like college athletics, like the North Georgia Hall of Fame. You only have 4 years on average to do something there when it comes to athletic success on the field or on the court or whatnot. But when you're talking about these major leagues, NASCAR, NFL, MLB, it's success over a long period of time.
That's correct.
And SVG's a great driver. I am not saying he's not. And he's probably the best road course driver we have in NASCAR right now.
100%.
But of all time, I think it's too early to say.
And keep in mind, he raced several Cup races last year, granted, in Colleague's car, not Trackhouse, and didn't win. But when he's in the right equipment, in the Xfinity Series, he was a Colleague car, and he won 3 or 4 races last year. This year, he's won all but one of the Cup road course races. He's won 3 out of 4. I will say, in a small body of work, if you win 60 or 75% of a type of race, even if it's if it's over several years, right? So let's say he runs let's say he quit after 2 years from now, just making that up, and he had only run 12 or 15 Cup road course races, but he won 60 or 70% and had been dominant, not just squeaky wins. Then you have a point. But the run that SVG is on right now, to your point, Devin, I'm agreeing with you, is very similar to whose run not 4, 5, 6 years ago.
You can make a case about Chase Elliott.
Right. And people were saying it about Chase. Oh, man, if Chase keeps this up, well, then Tyler Reddick happened. Then A.J. Allmendinger popped off a win or two. All right? By the way, SVG is now past A.J. Allmendinger in total Cup wins in his career, by the way, just saying. Awkward. But you start, you got to put this in perspective, people. You got to put it in perspective. So, one of the greatest already. I would say one of the greatest. But look back, and Dan Elliott joins just in time for this SVG greatest of all time road course racing conversation. A little technical difficulties. Dan, you've got 2 tiles logged in, by the way. It's kind of creating a traffic jam like in downtown Dawsonville, but that's okay. I want to ask you, Dan. I thought you froze again. I want to ask you, Dan, of your era, because Bill Elliott's first win, I mean, you guys was in the Melling Car's first win was on a road course at Riverside. Who would you consider from the mid-'80s to the late '90s, the time that you were at the track the most, the best road course drivers?
Through the decades that I was going to the racetrack, there are too many names to mention on who I thought was the greatest driver, because it's much like, I think Richard Petty said it honestly the correct way, that you not only have to compare decades, you have to compare generations of cars and the times that they were in at the time and what the rules were and who had the most advantage. Because Doug, Devin, you had one road course race a year or 2 a year, and that was in my era. So there is
that was in our era up until COVID, not that long ago.
Not that long ago, but I there's no way you cannot compare. And I had read an article that I don't know where the article came from, but it called SVG the new intimidator. And I'm like, this is just so out of hand, because it is, there's no way that you can give a correct or an incorrect answer on this, because you just can't compare differences in especially the Gen 6 car, Gen 7 car, and go back for as long as you want to, because there were things that gave drivers distinct advantages at the time. You know, the problem I see with this is now you've got, where did he move to from the first race he won on a road course in points? Here is the problem, is how far did he come up the chain by what he's been able to do on road course?
Yeah.
And you're comparing a championship driver who has 3 road course wins now, 4 wins total.
4 total.
4
And
total.
4
Okay.
all on road courses.
All at road course. Okay, so here's the problem: is that a champion or not?
Right,
He's
and that's gonna
definitely
if he
he's
goes deep
definitely
into
the
the
greatest
playoffs.
road course driver I've seen in a while. But as far as a champion, as far as one to run on the ovals and the road courses, this is yet to be determined.
So it definitely is yet to be determined. Bigger body of work, as Devin said, when you're getting reconnected there, Dan. And Shane Van Gisbergen has jumped to 26 in points now, which is not, I mean, nothing to sneeze about, 26 in points, but he has gone from almost the lowest ranked full-time driver in the series to 26, just I think since the Mexico win, and he started to run better elsewhere. Now, one point, and I didn't read the article you mentioned about the Intimidator, but about Dale Earnhardt, for those who don't know the Intimidator is, all right. But one thing that Van Gisbergen does that resembles Earnhardt, so I'm not calling him Earnhardt, but even though he's a smiling and seems like kind of a nice guy and all that stuff, when his helmet's on and when he has a chance, especially at a road course, to go for it, he is elbows out. And he's done it to Austin Hill. He did it to his teammate Connor Zilic in Chicago. He has that Earnhardt kind of swagger. I'm not saying Earnhardt champion. So maybe they meant just some aspects of Earnhardt's personality. It's a little bit throwback because he's just like, it kind of is more to me like Kyle Busch, especially Kyle Busch running Xfinity races. All right, just like I'm running circles around you, but I don't know about it, Dan. But Dan, you make a great point, and we're not going to get into it on this episode. We're 45 minutes in. We've got really 2 big things more to talk about. If SVG now with his how many playoff points? Anybody want to guess?
25 playoff points.
He's got like 30.
No, y'all are no. He's got 17, so 3 wins and 2 stage wins.
Yeah,
All
but
right,
the thing about it is, with the wins, he is in the playoffs and case closed.
No, so he's got the 3rd most playoff points now.
There you go.
All right, 3rd most. Who's got the most? Kyle Larson, because he's won a lot of stages, led a lot of laps, 3 race wins. Next most playoff points, Anito Hamlaroso, aka Denny Hamlin, for those that didn't follow. All right. Then it's Shane Van Gisbergen. SVG has more playoff points than Christopher Bell, who also has 3 wins. Christopher Bell has only 1 stage win this year outside of winning race, besides the stage 3 wins, if you will, his race wins, which doesn't even seem right. Chris Buescher, by the way, -4 playoff points. I forgot about his penalty sometime back. Yikes. So he is priming. We're not going to we talked about it more last week. SVG, in theory, if he could step it up this much, and by this much, those that are only listening, I'm saying about 1.5 inches, whatever, just a scotch. If he could step it up just a little bit on the ovals and survive round 1, where 4 drivers out of 16 get lopped out of the playoffs, well, the Roval's around 2, and you never know after that. So, and then I think we're going to really see a discussion about championship being 1 race and the playoffs and all that, which I'm not the person leading that discussion. I kind of like it the way it is. Maybe a championship round.
Doug, you can check off the first box, and that's getting in the playoffs, and you can check that one off.
Yeah. Well, check it and then some, because now with the 3 wins, so no doubt.
Yeah, but also too, but the 3 wins, as we've said, the road course is his forte.
Yeah.
That's his area of expertise. So what happens in the playoffs when you've got so many ovals in the playoffs?
No doubt. And he may flame out. A Trackhouse may run out of steam. Anything could happen, but it's way more possible than winning 1 race in Mexico or Harrison Burton at Daytona last year winning 1 race. It's like way more possible now, right?
Way more possible.
We'll cover it more here. We didn't even mention, I think, but once maybe on the episode after Atlanta Motor Speedway, that we were halfway through the full season, way past halfway in regular season. We're now 20 out of 36 races in, almost 2/3 of the way through this season. Give it a couple more weeks, and we're on to Dover next. Now, in-season tournament, Devin, your pick from the beginning, Ty Dillon. How about it, man? Do you have any comments on how that turned out? I'm going to pull up what's left of our bracket. just to kind of get into it. But any thoughts on who we have left and who's out? I guess.
I think it's going to be very interesting to see how far Ty Dillon advances. I think because now we have the most. I wouldn't say Dover Motor Speedway is a predictable track, but the next two races, Dover Motor Speedway and the Brickyard 400, the week after that, those are going to showcase more of the oval, less nowhere near as a wild card race or anything like that. Although we have seen the Brickyard 400 in the past be kind of a wild card if things get hectic.
Yeah.
I mean, it got hectic last year a little bit, but we saw regular come out on top at the end of
Yeah.
things.
That is a hard track. Those are both big track position, momentum kind of races for sure.
I just think it's interesting. We see on one side of the bracket two drivers that aren't talked about a whole lot, John Hunter Nemechek and Ty Dillon, and then you have some of the drivers that are in top tier equipment that haven't gotten a win yet, Tyler Reddick and Ty Gibbs. It's the battle of the ties. That's what it is.
It is the battle. Oh, that's true. Ty Dillon, Ty Gibbs, Tyler Reddick, and John Hunter Nemechek. Gosh, it's crazy to think, Dan, that like Ty Dillon and John Hunter, we saw him race at Gresham, and then Tyler Reddick came for the West Coast. We didn't see, and Ty Gibbs is way too young to race at Gresham. Like, man, we're cooked, bro. These drivers are way ahead of us now. Hey, here's the deal. 32nd seed Ty Dillon. He beat out Alex Bowman to get this one. John Hunter Nemechek with a 28th place finish beat Eric Jones. I think Jones is 29th, if I'm not mistaken. I got to go look real quick. Wait, I want to get that right. Hold on. Eric Jones was 29th, and John Hunter Nemechek 28th. So Legacy Motor Club advances one with a good top 30 finish. But then on the other side of the bracket, Tyler Reddick outlasted Carson Hocevar. Tyler Reddick outlasted Ryan Preece, who had a great run. It's just Tyler Reddick was better. And Ty Gibbs finished ahead of Zane Smith, and Smith actually had recovered well in that race. So it's Reddick and Gibbs on the right side bracket, and Dillon and Nemechek on the other side. Now that we're down to 4, Dan, before we move on and preview Dover, Dan, now that we're down to 4, are you interested yet?
Not really.
There it is. Respond right here. Respond right here. Mash the sub button.
My Kyle Larson prediction has not come out to a good result. You want to know what his average finish is over the last 5 races?
I would love to know.
21.6.
That is only like 15 spots better than me. That's wild. Or let's call it 18.
36th at Mexico City, 7th at Pocono, 17th at Echo Park, 13th at Chicago, and 35th at Sonoma.
Kyle, see this right here? It's hand sanitizer. Don't drink any. All right, now, I mentioned preview of Dover. One wrinkle in the news here. Eat my Cinedust, Chris Buescher says to Kyle Larson. And by the way, William Byron's been persona non grata. Chase Elliott has run better, I think, since he's won. Now you realize now that Chase, we're not going to do a whole thing on this. You realize now that Chase Elliott's won, it's, man, look how consistent he is. He's just as consistent as he was. It's just now he's won. Seems like the tables have turned, Mr. Powers. Okay, like, come on. All right, but Larson and Byron, and Dan, we need to say to everybody, you need to say what your theory is. Larson and Byron have been way out of left field for like 2 months, it seems like, for the most part, with some exceptions. And just say real quick why you think that is again.
Let's try some new stuff.
Bingo. There you go.
Let's try some new stuff.
Canal's in charge of the whole Hendrick shop now. Jimmy Johnson used to do the same thing. And it's other things. It's circumstantial. It's all of it. But let's try some new stuff. They've got a lot of playoff points. Well, one of those drivers, William Byron, has 5 less playoff points than SVG now. So put that in your pipe and smoke it. All right, now, 2 Dr. Evil references. That's enough. Antitrust suit. I don't want to get into particulars because I don't want to say it wrong. All right. And yeah, I know I'm a news guy, but it's just basically the deal is all the appeals, appeal, injunction, what's your function, all that boils down to we're recording on Tuesday. You're probably hearing this on a Wednesday. And what it boils down is 2311 and Front Row Motorsports that had these kind of grandfathered in charters, like this exception because they didn't sign the charter agreement, that expires hump day. Now, what Denny Hamlin has explained on Actions Detrimental, his podcast, is that they're filing another preliminary injunction that's basically a restraining order against NASCAR from selling their charters once their charters become divested and go back into the NASCAR hopper. That's just... I know there might be something technically wrong there, but that's basically it. Now, what does it mean when they're without a charter? It means you're not making charter team money, so you're making open team money for entering each race, which is significantly less, and it also means you don't have a guaranteed spot. Now, we saw that play out in Chicago when Corey Heim, who would not have been a chartered car anyway, but was a 2311 car, missed the race to Catherine Legg. If we get to Daytona or something down the line where more cars show up, this could come into play. You also have the pressure of Tyler Reddick and Bubba Wallace have contracts that require them to have charters in place. Jordan Bianchi from the Athletics done reporting on this. Other teams are keeping an eye on it, but they're also, especially mid-season, not trying to poach a driver. I mean, it's kind of, Justin Haley, Alex Bowman are struggling. Let's put Bubba Wallace at, that's a lot harder in theory to do. It's more of a theory type thing. So, but especially with Tyler Reddick, Dan Elliott, we saw him get poached from Richard Childress Racing 3 years ago, almost to the day. What do you think about this development here and how this goes forward?
This is just one of the world's largest games of chess that we've witnessed in the world of NASCAR. And all I've got to say is this is, I don't know if I would call it far from over, but it's getting more interesting as we get closer to the time whether this will go to court or not go to court, get settled. There are too many chess moves still yet to be played, but I still think that you play with NASCAR and you better have your big boy pants on, because this is, if it keeps on playing, you think this is something, just wait.
No doubt. And to that point, and then I want to hear from you, Devin. Thanks for saying that, Dan. Denny Hamlin said on Actions Detrimental that the reason they feel confident about going to trial, and this is one-sided, I just want to share the side, okay? I'm not espousing anything right now. He feels confident going to trial, which is not set until December, at least as of now, because there is so much that's been redacted, which means left off the public record in the discovery phase, that the judge can see that he thinks they really have a great case. He also thinks that they have a good case, and of course they're going to say this, in their preliminary injunction, because he thinks there is, in their discovery phase of this whole case, a lot of monopolistic evidence on NASCAR's behalf. That is his words, paraphrased by me, not my words, okay? Not my opinion.
Was it also the judge that supposedly told them to go back and settle this out of court?
Yeah, over and over and over and over and over.
Okay,
because of the reason you said, Dan, it's going to get ugly.
It's not going to be pretty, and I hate it for everyone involved, because this is probably going to play out a whole lot differently than a lot of people had thought in the beginning. And this also may play, depending on who or who does not win, as to how the other teams get treated in the year or years to come.
No doubt. No doubt.
No doubt.
So, Devin, what say you in particular? The things that are floating in the air right now. The fact that in technicality you have two playoff caliber drivers that could become free agents, and we don't know what the contracts say of the Front Row Motorsports drivers either. They may have, Zane Smith may have something in his that hasn't been reported. But also the back end, the economic side for these teams, in particular the smaller Front Row team. Where do you think this plays between? Let's forget the trial, Devin. What do you think happens? Your opinion, and that those parts of the Cup garage between now and the end of the season, especially with that playoff pressure on the 2311 side.
I think anything with drivers swapping mid-season, I just don't think it's likely at this point. We're getting to that point of the season where the regular season's almost over and the playoffs are here, and we saw it last year with Corey LaJoie and
Justin Haley
last year, but that was
that was a one for one swap. It wasn't replacing one technically. Yeah,
I don't think you see anything happen the rest of the year. I guess where the drivers are next season could be open season on those drivers that are contracts that are tied with the charter agreements, but I don't foresee anything happening the rest of the season when it comes to all this. And if they do get their charters, I think the real thing will be next year. Although you might start here, there might be a lot of distractions within the Front Row in 2311 organizations going forward the rest of the season. I think those will definitely be present, but any huge major changes, I don't think you see until next year.
I think with Bubba Wallace only 3 points to the playoff good, the last thing you need is more static, and it may not go all the way to the driver's seat. But think about the team. Charles Denick led number 23 team. They were running well. And it's kind of like they're starting to spit oil everywhere. And they're hanging on by a thread. We saw maybe a misjudgment, to say, put it politely, of Bubba Wallace in Chicago. But there have been other things out of his control that maybe the team has messed up. Other things out of the whole team's control that they're just at the fate of. You don't need another stressor put on you like this. It's tough to say. So let's look at. We're going to stay here for all of it. Anything we hear reported, we're going to talk about it on the show. We aren't necessarily the regular NASCAR beat reporters that are out there trying to gather all this stuff all of the time, but anything we have, we're going to pass along. All right, I want to get to, before we leave Sonoma, need to mention that Connor Zilisch put on one whale of a show with Shane Van Gisbergen and the Xfinity Series Sonoma race. Zilisch actually came on top. So all this talk about SVG the GOAT, maybe, probably, maybe even probably, but let's not forget the next year, it is widely believed, like at least an 80% chance, that Connor Zilisch will be Daniel Suarez's Cup Series replacement. And those two guys, Zilisch being all of 19 years old, SVG and his veteranship will be going tay-to-tay, as Doug Rice would always say on PRN, going at the road courses each week. But excuse me, Connor Zilisch, I almost said Shane Zilisch. Thank God that's not his name. Shane Zilisch. That'd be terrible
Shane
to say.
Gillis is a comedian.
Shane Gillis. Yes, it does a really good Trump impersonation. Shane Gillis, Shane Van Gisbergen, Connor Zilisch, it'll be fun to watch them in the Cup Series next year. That was the Xfinity Series. I want to get, because IndyCar had a doubleheader in Idaho, and I want to represent that correctly. But before we get to that, let's look ahead to Dover. Coming up, Cup and Xfinity Series. Who, and I love to do this because I have the answers, and then ask you guys and make you go, who do you think has the most points in the Gen 7 era Cup Series Dover? 3 races.
Denny Hamlin.
He's second, but he has got 12 less points than another driver. Denny Hamlin won last year, than another driver who has won in the Gen 7 era at this track.
How about Chase Elliott?
Chase Elliott is 4th. I just narrowed it down of drivers that have won that may be ahead of Denny Hamlin in points in 3 races. It would be Martin Truex Jr., just like Sonoma last week, right? Truex, of course.
That's a big surprise.
It is. What's interesting to me, though, is Truex has an average start, or had an average start of 16 points in those Dover races, but had an average finish of 5.3.
All right, how do you think he's going to run in this race coming up?
The same as me. Now, Truex, right? I mean, we're both running 0 laps. Well, there's still a chance we could each run laps. Denny Hamlin he won last year, 2 top 5s, average finish of 9th, but average finish of 7th. Ross Chastain, the 3rd most points. He might be a dark horse there. I hate to call him a dark horse, but he doesn't run at the tip front of the track a lot these days. And then it's Chase Elliott, Ryan Blaney, Kyle Busch, Kyle Larson, Chris Buescher, William Byron, and Alex Bowman rounding out the top 10. Notice there are no Zane Smith, Ty Dillon, Justin Haley, even Colin Cars mixed into that, right? It's a lot of the heavy hitters, as Devin mentioned before when talking about the in-season.
See, I figured with that loaded question, you were going to tell me that Truex was driving somebody else's car.
I wish I could tell you that, and I think that would be great if he just showed up and ran at what is one of like 4 different tracks that people call his home track. That is where he got his first career Cup win, 2007. A race
Devin,
delayed
is that
till
where
a
you
Monday.
thought that was going?
Where?
Yeah, where?
We lost Devin.
Yep.
Ladies and gentlemen, we've lost
Where?
Devin. As soon as I started talking about pit road, he checked out. Hey, I'm joking. The only open team entered this weekend. You had Catherine Legg, for instance. She ran the last couple races. The only open team this time around is that NY Racing team, and it'll be number 44, JJ Yaley. That's for the Cup Series. Cup schedule this weekend, all right? I'm going to go by series instead of doing it all in order. Cup practice and qualifying, that's going to be on TNT, so Jayski says. I thought it was always on True TV, but whatever. One of those things, if you have TNT, you probably have True. That is Saturday, and that is 1:35 to 3:30. Practice and then qualifying. You can also listen to it all on PRN Sirius XM. And then Sunday, green flag set for just after 2 p.m. at Dover Motor Speedway, and that will be as well on TNT. Now, for the Xfinity Series, let me toggle over to that bad boy. 1 second. Truck Series still off. They come back at Indy. They'll be at O'Reilly Raceway Park. The Xfinity Series, their qualifying is Saturday just after lunch, right at lunchtime, 12:10 p.m. It's practice at 11 and then qualifying at 12:10. Those could be seen inside the CW app only. Remember, you can't watch those on TV. But the race itself cannot be streamed on the CW app. It can only be watched on TV, or if you're a carrier, carry CW, and that will be at 4:30 on Saturday afternoon. PRN, Sirius XM, Channel 90, and local affiliates will have that as well on radio. And if I was a good podcast host, guys, I'd tell you who won the Xfinity race a year ago. So I'm going to do that real quick and awkwardly vamp while we do it.
It's probably Martin Truex.
Man, it could, I mean, he ran a few of those races. That one thing, I mean, Dan, you've talked about at Dover, it being one of the most physically challenging and at times climatically, is that the word? It's not the word, but one of the most climate challenged races as well. Like you've had some of your biggest slugs out there at Dover, and it was a Truex that has won the last two Dover Xfinity races, but it was little brother Ryan. How little we remember that Ryan Truex is really good at Dover. April of last year, he ran
Like
in that
father,
race.
like son.
Yeah, no doubt. Yeah, Martin Sr. But Dan, you mentioned Dover back when it was 500 laps instead of 400 or 500 miles instead of 400 was quite the slug, right?
It was physically demanding, whether it was on the driver or the pit crew. It was physically demanding. And usually at Dover, the weather was extremely hot, which garnered itself to be very tough on driver and on crew as well. But definitely one of the most demanding racetracks that I've seen drivers run in quite a while. Still on the NASCAR schedule.
I don't think there's any doubt about that. The
But
G-loads that they pull in the
400
turns.
miles now versus 500. So
yeah. And we don't need it to be, I like the physical extremes of that, but we don't need it to be longer. We don't need it to be longer.
They were showing they were showing old Dover races on the NASCAR channel today, and that felt like a long race. I think it was the 1988 race that they showed that Bill Elliott won in the Coors car.
What do you remember from that one, Dan?
I don't remember a lot from that one. I remember the one in 1990 where we stayed and tore the engine down for NASCAR. And by the time we got to the airport, which at that time we had two little single-engine Cessnas, and we had the pit crew and divided up among, but the planes didn't hold, but 4 and the pilot each. So you had your luggage. So by the time we got to the airport, and it was late that evening, a thunderstorm had come up. And I'm sitting there thinking, they're not going to let us leave. Well, if you're stupid enough to leave, they will let you leave. And we were stupid enough to leave. And a 3-hour flight ended up being a 5-hour flight in which me and Ernie's son, Casey, was in the back seat. And when we got home, we both got out and kissed the ground. That tells you what kind of flight that was, the flight from hell.
Oh, man.
It was one of the most scary flights. And for people who fly and don't think weather can change quickly, just being an airplane that isn't worthy of getting altitude enough to get you out of weather and you're flying in weather the whole time, that will get your attention.
Stank. That is not good. That is not good. Well, I'm glad you survived, Dan.
Me too.
I've done my time in a traffic Cessna before, and I like Cessnas just fine, but the two times I've been airborne where I thought, wow, we might not make it, we're both in a Cessna.
It wasn't
when I was
any
making
fault
like
of the airplane.
$11 an hour.
The capabilities are not there for a single engine aircraft to get you out of thunderstorms or get you through weather any way, shape, or form. So be aware of what you're in and what your capabilities are. Or as Clint Eastwood said, you got to know your limitations. And that's definitely one. If you fly, you better know your limitations.
No doubt. And you better be right with God, too, just in case. Okay, so you should always be right with God, but especially then. Xfinity Series. Now, I mentioned the Cup Series entry list. You got all of your 36 regulars in the field, plus the 44 of J.J. Yeley. Xfinity, always a little more interesting. And we've now come to, hold on. So I've got an orchestra lined up here.
Well, I do remember meeting the governor of Delaware at that race.
I remember you saying that too. Yeah,
yep.
Was he impressed by being the Budweiser 500? You running the Coors car?
No, but he was impressed that I knew who he was, and I had never met him before.
That's proud to be your bud.
Can I tell you the story? I was
Hell
there.
Yeah, you can tell us the story.
I was there at the start-finish line, and I was waiting on the race to start, and you didn't have but one way into the racetrack, and if they closed the gate under the grandstand, that was the only way in. I was waiting on a friend of mine who was going to meet me there. He was coming for the race, and he wanted to be in the infield. So I'd heard the gate guards talking about the governor was going to be there, and they said, well, I've never met the governor before, and they were talking. And they said, well, what does the governor look like? This was them talking amongst themselves. And he said, well, he looks like a howdy doody. And I just stood there, and I couldn't believe what they were saying. But anyway, as I saw my friend at the top of the bank, and I was going up to meet him whenever the governor came down the racetrack, and I stopped and held out my hand. He shook my hand, and I said, "You must be the governor." He said, "Yes, I'm the governor." He said, "How did you know?" I said, "Just a lucky guess."
Oh my God, Dan, your stories, and I look forward to so later in this season. All right, respond right here. Later in this season, we're going to talk about when we get to the 40th anniversary of the Winston Million. We'll do that close to Labor Day, right? Because
Yep,
Darlington, Southern 500.
yep.
Also, you Dan, and just this is why it's worth sticking around for. Respond right here, mash the sub button, like, subscribe, share. Also, Dan, we want to hear your perspective on not today, but your perspective on Earnhardt in light of the release of that multi-part miniseries that was so well done on Prime
Yes.
Video
We
recently.
got to talk about
Earnhardt.
that. And this race at Sonoma this weekend brought back memories of that, because this was the last race that I saw Dale Sr. alive, was this race. And I was going into a porta-john, and I saw out of the corner of my eye, I saw a car pulling up toward my porta-john. So I just quickly turned around, spun myself around, and opened the door and went out. He was getting ready to drive me into the fence with the porta-john, and he had Teresa in the car, and he was just dying laughing, and I knew what they were getting ready to do. If this was
You
going
knew
to
what
be
they were getting ready to do.
yeah, I know what they were getting ready to do. They were getting ready to smear a little poop on me.
Okay.
He was in a
I
in a
thought you
town
had. Yeah, I thought you had more of a window into their private lives, but they get a little like the Porta John really gets them in the mood or something. That's what I thought you were.
no,
Well,
I,
it wouldn't be the first time that Earnhardt had browned some shorts by putting someone in a fence, no doubt.
nope. But this was a different fence, and this wasn't a car. This was a porta john. So this was not going to end up pretty for me.
That's not many people can say that they almost got
Pinned to the
crap canned by
fence in a
Earnhardt.
porta john by Dale Senior. No, not many
It's pretty
people can.
good. It's
Yeah,
pretty good.
but that was
Good
my
job,
last
Ralph.
memory of Dale Senior.
Good job, Ralph. Yeah, watch the Earnhardt documentary, Prime Video, and one of these shows we're going to clear some space. Maybe the next one. We
Yeah,
probably should have done it for this
we've
one
got
because
to
that's
talk about that.
All right, now we're going to get to Devin Kupka's favorite part of the show, and I've hired a band. All percussion. It's the Xfinity Series entry list, everybody. Let's go, son. And actually, there's a change on here I wasn't expecting. All right, Chris Wright, one of the greatest pilots of Xfinity cars of all time, is not in the number 5 this weekend. Kaz Gralla is. Don't know the story, just saw that right now. Respond right here. Next, Nick Lights in the 07. He's been splitting that ride up with several other drivers there at SS Greenlight Racing. Down the list, Ross the Boss is going to be in this race. Boy, Junior Motorsports is crawling that number 9 out more often these days, aren't they? The number 9, Acceptance Insurance, Chevrolet, Ross Chastain. He'll be in the race. Garrett Smithley returns to what's been his home ride this year, who's given it up a few weeks in number 14. Who will be in the number 17, and I believe making their Xfinity Series debut this weekend? Anybody want to guess? Number 17, Hendrick Motorsports, and I think it's their Xfinity debut. I'm going to check that while you guys come up with that.
Season debut, not the series debut.
Okay, give it to us, Dev.
Rajah Caruth. I thought Rajah Caruth was making his debut this weekend.
He's not the 17. He's not listed on the entry list. Okay, well, so while I explain that, or Dan takes a guess, do you want to look up a bit? So I've got a different name on the entry list, but look up Rajah Caruth Xfinity Series while Dan guesses. All right, because it's someone else. It's a name that you may know, but it's someone who's not been in the Xfinity Series
Martin
before.
Truex.
Martin Truex Jr. is not, or Senior, rest in peace, or Martin III doesn't exist. It's listed as Jake Finch, James's boy.
Yep.
Jake Finch is listed now. I did see about Rajah Caruth, though, running, and he has run for Alpha Prime in the past. So we'll get back to that in a moment. I don't know if did you see anything that says otherwise, Devin?
No, I thought it was a 17 car. But
I thought it was
car.
like Martinsville or something later. I didn't know it was supposed to be this weekend, but Jake Finch is who's listed right now. All right. Eric Almirola will be in that all-star number 19 Joe Gibbs Racing ride there. Eric Almirola, he's run, a handful of races this year. Ryan Truex, the defending winner twice in this race, is going to drive Sam Hunt's number 24. All right. And that's big because Truex just won races, by God, and still isn't getting put in these cars. So God bless him for that. Rajah Caruth will be in the 32 for Jordan Anderson Racing, right? The number 32, Rajah Caruth, Jordan Anderson Racing. Joey Gase's car is listed as TBA like it seems like every week when we're reading these. So is the 45 of Alpha Prime and the 53 of Joey Gase. Fill out your entry blanks, boys. And then Leland Honeyman returns to the number 70 car that he splits with Thomas Annunziata for Cope Family Racing. Definitely some different names there. 40 cars are showing up, so that means 2 of them are going to go home, and neither of those 2 will be from Front Row Motorsports or 2311 because it's the Xfinity Series. All right, so that kind of wraps up the preview for Xfinity there. Everything in the Xfinity side takes place Saturday. Cup Series practice qualifying Saturday, big race on Sunday. All right. Have we blown the wad, guys? Do we have any more? Devin's over it. With that, final thoughts here, and I want to change the tone a little bit because, Dan, you've got a special one you want to talk about and a personal friend as well here before we take the show into the garage.
Yeah, a friend of mine, we worked together in the late 70s and was instrumental in some of the engine work as well as the chassis work on the number 9 car when we first got started. That was the loss of Gary Dingler, and
yeah,
Gary's resume covers a lot of territory, whether it be racing engines or associations with past Cup history and even into a little bit of the future. But engine builder, chassis, you name it, he was across the board and Hall of Fame.
He had helped win Pete Hamilton's Daytona 500 car. He'd built the engines for a couple of Snowball Derby winners. Everybody knows what the Snowball Derby is. Yeah, that's big. Rest in peace, Gary Dingler there, and he was the 2017 Georgia Racing Hall of Fame inductee there. Hey, I want to clear up something real quick on the entry list for Xfinity. Kaz Grala was added more recently. Chris Wright was originally listed there, so I don't know the story with that. I'll reach out to the team and see what I can find out. It could be a funding thing, could be health thing. I have no idea. So I wasn't trying to minimize what was the deal with Gary there. So rest in peace, Gary Dingler. Thoughts and prayers to everybody in his circle. And Georgia Racing Hall of Fame has lost another one. That's why it's so important to get the right people in. We have our induction ceremony August 2nd. I'll get to be part of the ceremony there. Every time I open it up with Devin, you've been there a bunch of times. Hey, look around. This is the only time this group of people is going to be here like this. Because a lot of those people don't come back because it's just their family that get put in. Other people pass away. Other people don't come for whatever reason. And we just got to soak it up and enjoy it where we can. So rest in peace, Gary Dingler. How about you, Dev? What you got?
My final thought is with the domination we've seen with SVG on the road courses and the street courses in NASCAR, I wonder if he'll ever make a stab at F1 because I'm curious to see with how his performance is in NASCAR on these types of courses, how that could translate over to F1.
Okay, that's big. That's big. I had this same thought when SVG was doing burnouts in that Red Bull car. And you had the thought first. All right. It's just, I had that same, just like, what if is SVG doing enough that Red Bull could fly him out there and he'd do an FP1 rookie practice or something? And by the way, that won't fit with the NASCAR schedule. You just got to wonder, what if Red Bull just sacked their leader of 20 years, Christian Horner, because they've struggled? This is a team that won all but 2 races 2 years ago, and they've already fired the leader of the team. But granted, Horner had a big investigation, all this different stuff. We're not getting into it, but a lot of strife around him. And now they're sort of wondering who's going to be the second driver to Max Verstappen. Now, look, SVG body-wise doesn't fit F1 drivers. He hasn't driven open-wheel cars, if ever, in a long time. But wouldn't that be interesting? Could he be on Red Bull's radar? Heck, could Connor Zilisch if he did well enough in the Cup Series? The answer is probably not, but it's fun to think about there. So I love that, Devin. I hope I didn't steal your thought from you. That's so interesting, okay? That's so interesting. Hey, and for me, I just want to say, let's have a great weekend and enjoy some racing. Not every race is a barn burner. The PRN crew is going to be at Dover, and Dover is trucking in. I think I heard Brad Gilly and Doug Rice say on Fast Talk, PRN podcast you should listen to every single week. I think it's 600 tons of sand, and they're making Dover Beach out in front, or maybe it's called Miles Beach, out in front of the racetrack, and they're going to have a whole beach out there sponsored by the Dover, I think it's Convention and Visitors Bureau. All right, so I'm not going to be there. I'm going to be here in the ATL getting ready to go to Daytona with my high schoolers. All right, which, by the way, I'm ready to run. I've got my Lightning McQueen kid-sized sunglasses. I am ready to run the Daytona 500 on the go-kart track for one last time with my high schoolers before they graduate after, this coming school year. Stay tuned to my social channels, all right, because the Daytona 500 coming up next, like, Wednesday or so, it's going down to Daytona. Homeboy's going to win, all right? Just to do that. I'm putting high schoolers in the wall, all right? I'm not lifted till I see Jesus or the checkered flag.
Hey, Devin, he's going to go down there and pin one of them in a porta-john to the fence.
Yeah.
And because I love him. That's right, because I love them. All
Yeah.
right. Everybody, thank you for tuning into the show. You know we're on YouTube. We put some YouTube short videos out, so be sure to share those or just consume those. I don't know. I haven't made any money off it. I'm just saying we should do that. Rising tide lifts all boats. If you know someone that you think should be listening to this or know someone that you don't like, you want to recommend something to them, go ahead and share the show. And we just really appreciate all of you for listening. For Devin Kupka and Dan Elliott, I'm Doug Turnbull. Rest in peace to Gary Dingler. We'll see you after Dover. And thank you for tuning in to the 5 to Go podcast. And by the way, I have no idea what we're doing next week. Peace.